Protecting and serving the emperor was one of the highest honors. You didn't get more respect than walking down the streets as a member of a samurai family. Rick Harrison lost everything in an instant. One of his most loyal employees was given a life sentence, and his pawn empire lay in ruins. His shop, which used to be a sign of success, is now awash in lawsuits and betrayals. His mother finally killed him by accusing him of lying to her while she was in a coma, and when Chumlee got his death sentence, everything fell apart. The Pawn Stars empire falls apart in front of our eyes. Pawn Stars wasn't a lucky break. Rick and his father Richard built it from the ground up. Richard was a straight-talking, no-nonsense guy who knew the game better than anyone else. When he died in 2018, the shop lost more than its founder. It lost its backbone. Rick tried to keep things going, but trouble was already waiting in the shadows for the right time to strike. Then a secret came to light, ready to tear everything apart. Running a pawn shop in Las Vegas was never easy. Every day was a grind of late payments, low profits, and customers who brought more problems than valuables. But Rick had a secret weapon. He was good at telling stories. He knew that people weren't just buying things, they were buying history, a piece of something bigger. That's what made Pawn Stars a hit. The strange, rare items and crazy backstories. It all clicked for the 8-year-old kid from Utah who told everyone he had a great grain and all these plans to make a lot of money. Rick, his son Corey, and their silly sidekick Chumlee became famous overnight in 2009. No one saw this coming, but it was gold until it wasn't. Fame has a way of turning things upside down, and lawsuits, family feuds, and general chaos behind the scenes were hard to ignore by 2022. The empire was starting to show cracks. And then Rick's mother sued him, saying he tricked her into giving up her share of the shop while she was recovering from a coma. She wanted a full accounting of the $500,000 and even tried to stop him from selling off assets. The family that used to be together was now tearing itself apart in public. As if that wasn't bad enough, the pandemic hit like a freight train, and what used to bring in millions of dollars barely made it with $37,000 a year. And then there was Chumlee. On screen, he was the lovable goofball. Off screen, he was a disaster waiting to happen. In 2016, police raided his house and found enough drugs and weapons to charge him. He was charged with multiple felonies, including assault. The assault charges were dropped, but his reputation was ruined. He avoided prison by taking a plea deal, but Pawn Stars would never be the same. Then there was Corey Reckless, who, as usual, rented an RV for a wild trip through the desert, trashed it, and then refused to pay for the damage. Lawsuits followed, causing even more shame and fueling the fire. Even the so-called experts weren't safe from scandal. The show's toy specialists were charged with domestic violence, and the sports memorabilia I loved making money. And I knew that if you went to a swap meet and kept looking for silver spoons and other things like that, you could sell them at a pawn shop if you could get them for really cheap. Pawn Stars wasn't just losing credibility, it was turning into a slow-motion train wreck. The show started to feel off. The one-off deals now felt scripted. The negotiations seemed fake. The magic was gone, and Rick was scrambling to grow his business, Empire with Pawn Plaza, a shopping center near the shop, but that failed. Lawsuits and broken business deals followed, and the empire he worked so hard to build started to slip through his fingers. But the biggest betrayal was still to come. Rick's downfall wasn't just bad luck. It was personal, family, money, greed. It was all coming to a head. And when the curtains came down, Pawn Stars wouldn't be remembered for its rare finds or million-dollar deals. It would be remembered as the empire that fell apart from the inside out. As Rick the pawn shop turned into a battleground where deals that used to be easy were now hard to make. People came in thinking they had treasure, only to be met with harsh reality checks. One man came in with what he said was an authentic war medal, expecting a windfall, but it turned out to be a cheap copy. Rick saw the disappointment on his face on many occasions. Collectors still came in, but the mood had changed. A woman brought in an old racket. did some research and found that the Civil War sword wasn't as rare as she thought. She left disappointed, which seems to be a common theme these days. Another seller came in with a vintage Rolex, but it was a Frankenstein watch made up of mismatched parts. The offer was a fraction of what he expected, which caused more bad blood and tension. Pawn Stars had become a shadow of its former self. The once thriving shop felt like it was sinking. The lawsuits, betrayals, and scandals had all taken a toll on Rick. He used to be the deal maker and the smooth talker, but now he was just trying to keep his head above water. Then the news came out that Chumlee, the show's heartthrob, was sentenced to life in prison. All the plea deals and second chances in the world weren't enough for him. Counterfeiters have become very good at fake coins, so it's important to take your time and look carefully because the devil is in the details. His past finally caught up with him, and there was no getting away from it. This time, Million's silly friend, who used to make him laugh, was now just another sad story. The pawn shop used to be his empire, a place where deals were made, fortunes were won or lost, and every object had a story. Now, it's just a shell of what it used to be. Without Adam's laughter reverberating through the shop and Chumlee's silly antics keeping things light, the place feels different, almost empty. He stands behind the counter, where he's made thousands of deals, but his mind isn't on the shop. No longer is it on Adam, his son gone too soon, and Chumlee, who was locked away forever paying a price that could never be undone. Customers still come in with their dusty heirlooms, collector's items, and half-baked hopes of getting rich. Rick goes through the motions of looking at an old coin, a signed baseball, or a piece of art that someone says is worth a fortune, but his heart isn't in it. Every time he turns around, he expects to see Adam leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, smirking at him. Another seller thinks they found the best deal ever. He expects to hear Chumlee making a stupid joke from the other side of the room, but all he hears is silence. The shop had had problems before, but nothing like this. Losing money was one thing, losing family was another. Rick is having his worst losses yet. The deals keep coming in, but the thrill is gone. A guy comes in with a so-called rare relic and is sure it's worth thousands of dollars. Rick is too tired to negotiate, so he lowballs the guy, but it's not because he wants to get the best deal. He doesn't care about the deal, but he also doesn't see the point in another customer, another item, and another day closer to nothing at home. It's worse. The walls feel like they're closing in. Memories of Adam fill every room. His old clothes still hang in the closet. His favorite chair still sits in the corner untouched. The house is too quiet, and the news about Chumlee keeps playing over and over in his mind like a broken record. Life in prison for that guy who made everyone laugh. The guy who found joy in, it was the little things that annoyed Rick, but they always had his back. Gone forever, Rick tries to move on. He works hard to keep the shop running, but no matter how many collectibles he values or how much money comes through his hands, it doesn't change the fact that the two people who made this place feel like home are gone. Life goes on, but Rick is stuck in pain and loss, trying to figure out what to do next now that everything he knew is gone. The pawn shop may still be standing, but its heart is gone, and Rick is just trying to hold on. It had started out like any other day, waking up to an empty house, riding to the shop alone with his thoughts, the lights flickering on inside to light up the counters full of history artifacts from different times and lives, but none of them mattered anymore when one of the regulars walked in. This guy had been coming in for years, always bringing in strange things. This time it was an old revolver that the seller said was from the early 1800s and had been passed down through generations in his family. It was said to be an heirloom with more history than most museums. Rick hardly looked at it before offering a price that was much lower than what the seller wanted. The seller laughed, shook his head, and left. Usually Rick would have cared and maybe tried to talk the seller into a deal, but today the shop was dead quiet. It felt too heavy without Chumlee's energy. People came and went, deals were made, but he wasn't really there. His body moved and he made deals, but his mind was somewhere else, stuck in a loop of grief and disbelief. He still hadn't gone through Adam's things. They sat in his house, untouched, waiting for a moment that would never feel right. The thought of packing them up and deciding what to keep and what to give away felt impossible. Every shirt, every book, and every little thing. As soon as I read this law, I thought, that has to be close to that for the city proper there. So I started calling the city statute office once a week, and he wasn't ready to let go. Chumlee's sentencing had been a nightmare in and of itself. He had tried to help make things better, but the justice system doesn't work like a pawn deal. There's no haggling, counteroffers, or ways to walk away with a win. Chumlee had messed up, and now he was Rick. Had built his career on knowing how much things were worth. He could look at a coin and tell you exactly how much it was worth. He could also look at an old painting and tell you exactly what it was worth and spot a fake from a mile away. But when it came to the value of life and the moments that really mattered, he had never felt more lost. The days blurred together with more deals, empty conversations, and acting like everything was fine. The world kept spinning around him, but the people who meant the most to him, they were gone, and no amount of money, rare artifacts, or high-stakes negotiations could bring them back. Some nights, he stayed at the shop long after it closed, staring at the shelves and the memories that were written all over the place. He thought about leaving, selling everything, and leaving it all behind. But then he wouldn't know where to go or what to do. The pawn shop was his life, for better or worse, was all he had left. His grief was wearing him down, and he carried it with him every step. The customers didn't see it and didn't know how to deal with it. Along with his usual sharpie stare, a lot of pain was biting at him and wouldn't let go. Rick Harrison had spent his whole life making deals and seeing value in things other people didn't see. But this loss was a price he could never have planned for. The shop doors opened again, and there was another customer and deal. It was a reminder that life goes on, even when it feels like it shouldn't. He had spent his whole life making deals and turning the gold and silver pawn shop into a real business. Rick was good at spotting fakes and scams before the papers even hit the counter, but nothing had prepared him for what happened next. The pawn shop had turned into a reality TV sideshow, with autographs, cameras, and tourists who had no idea how it all really worked. Gold and silver pawned used to be about history, but now Rick wondered if any of it was real. It was a business that had been buried by fame and tragedy in the days before the bright lights and big names. Deals were still made, but Rick felt like he was watching his own life from afar. The pawn shop that had once been his pride and joy now felt hollow. He had built something amazing, but now it was just a tourist trap, and not nearly as good as it used to be. Rick thought about leaving it all behind, selling the shop and starting over somewhere else, away from the cameras, the expectations, and the chaos, but every time he thought about it, something stopped him. Maybe it was his faith. He might have been stubborn, or he may have really believed that there was a way to get back what had been lost, but the details of his life kept falling apart. It wasn't just business. The weight of loss wasn't just a temporary burden. It changed the way he saw everything. He would walk around the shop late at night and stare at old things that used to mean something, wondering if he had lost more than just a business. He wondered if he had lost himself in the process. The shop's loss had become personal, as the relationships that had made it famous had broken down due to fame and personal tragedy. Rick wondered if he had lost not only a business, but also the very sense of purpose that had driven him for so long. The pawn shop had given him a reason to wake up every morning, but now he wasn't sure what he was waking up for. What do you think? Is the gold and silver pawn shop still a business or just a ghost of its past? Let us know what you think, and don't forget to like and follow for more scary stories.